So good morning, everybody. It's a great pleasure for me to host the 7th International Conference on New Business Model. This year, the main issue of the conference is sustainable business model challenges, economic recovery, and digital transformation. So after 2 years of pandemic, we decided to manage this edition of the conference in hybrid mode, meaning that some of us participate online while others are here in Rome. So, and I'm very happy to see our Aula Magna full of people again. Now, to formally open the conference, I have the pleasure to introduce the rector of the LUMSA University, Professor Francesco Bonini, who will say a few words of introduction.
Grazie. I am particularly pleased to extend the warmest welcome to you to the 7th International Conference on New Business Models. This edition of the conference is based on 3 keywords: sustainability, economic recovery, and digitalization. These are topics of great relevance both in the institutional political scenario and in the academic one, because they cover the main challenges that we are facing in our period of history. Themes that also represent a response to the darker side of this period in which words such as pandemic, economic crisis, and war resound. In this scenario, I would like to share with you a first reflection on the role of the university and on why these themes, sustainability, economic recovery, and digitalization, concern us so closely. I firmly believe that in this current time in history, the university has been first of all a point of stability for the community, and it will become ever more so in the near future. A conference that, because of its vocation for discussion and for the context that revolve around the key theme of sustainability, I believe has found in LUMSA a suitable home, and I also hope you will all find to be a hospitable one. And I would like to explain, in particular to those who don't know LUMSA, why and how we hold dear the issue of sustainability. The birth of the LUMSA University, founded in 1939, when Europe and Italy itself were experiencing a period of serious conflict, is a story of vision and courage. Founded by a woman, Luigia Tincani, to fulfill 2 important missions: to make it possible to access to university and study easier for nuns called to teach in Catholic schools, and to contribute to an intellectual and human formation free from the ideological conditioning of that time. A testimony of how the LUMSA University has always tried, since its origin, to contribute to training and research, and has done so by caring in particular for the most excluded people by facilitating women's access to study. And looking at the theme of sustainability, I wish to focus for a moment in the social dimension, because new business models also take into consideration the people most excluded or marginalized, so that they can regain their dignity and their role in the community. Finally, at the roots of our work, there is another important mission related to formation. To educate is to love, said Luigia Tincani, our founder, where education is not only a simple transmission of notions, but also an integral formation of the person that goes beyond the purpose of an exclusively intellectual preparation. And in this so-called integral education, sustainability is today an essential part, as change in radical only of also cultural. And a cultural change is only possible through a new generation. In conclusion, I borrow the word of Pope Francesco, taken from the encyclical Laudato Si, to express my best wishes and invitation to you to carry a debate with, quote, openness, to different possibilities which do not involve stifling human creativity and its ideas, ideals of progress, but rather directing that energy along new channels. I conclude with a special greeting to all speakers, starting with Minister Colau, and reiterating that UMSL University is pleased and proud to be able to give its contribution to further debate, exchange, and relation between universities and scholars from so many different countries. Finally, I thank the colleagues who have organized this conference. Grazie a Laura Michelini e ad Anna Minà. Molte grazie. I wish you all good luck with your work and a pleasant stay in Rome. Benvenuti.
Let's continue with my colleagues and members of the NBM Board Conference. Maya Overskog from Halmstad University, welcome, and Niels Faber from the University of Groningen. Please.
Okay. Shall we go there? Yeah.
What do you prefer?
Yeah?
Okay.
Oh, okay. So we'll be brief.
Yeah.
Good morning, all. I'm very sorry my throat is killing me, so I keep it brief. On behalf of the NBM board, which I see a few people sitting there, Florian, Romana, two of us, welcome at NBM Rome. We are very happy that after 2 years of seeing each other in screens, we can now see each other face to face again. I extend a very, very great applause to Laura and Anna for hosting the conference this year, and we are looking forward to seeing all of you, discussing the matters of new business models for the coming 2 days. Please enjoy and feel free to talk about anything you would like.
And we were so eager to start the conversation, so we already started it with 31 PhD students yesterday during the doctoral colloquium, and 11 senior faculty. And it was an inspiring and quite lively discussion that we are hoping to continue in the 2 conference days. Looking forward to meet all of you, listen to a lot of presentation, and discuss interesting ideas. Enjoy the conference.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'm pleasure to invite the President and CEO of Johnson & Johnson MedTech, Silvia De Dominicis, and Professor Silvio Micali, founder of Angoland, to take the stage. And I'm now honored to present our first keynote speaker, Vittorio Colau, Minister of Technological Innovation and Digital Transition. Please take the floor. Yeah, maybe.
Professor Bonini, thank you for having me here today. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here today. First of all, I would like to congratulate LUMSA for choosing the topic of sustainable economic development and business models, because you're really hitting something that is key in this phase with the events that we have seen recently hitting the world, and it's key in 3 directions. The first one is because, of course, we need economic recovery, but not just economic recovery. We need an equitable economic recovery, like Professor Bonini has mentioned, an economic recovery that leaves nobody behind, or at least as few people as possible behind. The second is because we need to boost innovation. We have seen the challenges that we have to face, and we now understand the magnitude of the challenges that we will have to face, and benefit. Clearly, innovation would benefit at the same time citizens and businesses, but also the institutions who have to face these challenges. So we need economic recovery, equitable economic recovery, but we also need innovation. And finally, we need real advance in sciences. Of course, the world always needs advance in sciences, but there are 3 or 4 areas. I think of environment, I think of health, I think of the materials domain. I think of the agri-sector that really need to advance at a faster pace in the coming years. And of course, the tech and the digital transformation will be very useful in these three directions. But we have to be honest, there are also some critical elements in the tech the evolution that we will have to face. The first is the fast-growing, enormously growing volume of data and the environmental footprint that the impact on the economic system will cause. Corporations, individuals, public administration, institutions, we are worldwide becoming much more dependent on data. The volume, we have experts here that are much more experts than me. I mean, and you always mention the 60 zettabytes or whatever is the number. Nobody really understands what is this, but we understand it's big. Next year we'll have produced more data than what we have produced in the previous 30 years, and it keeps growing. So while remote working, online learning, streaming services, they're all wonderful things that are affecting in a positive way our lives. On the other side, they're producing enormous energy consumption, and we have to consider the impact that this continuous explosion, a geometrical explosion of data will have in terms of sustainability. Of course, there's ways to plan for sustainability. There are discussions. We are tackling the issue at the EU level now on how to design this data world in a way which is long-term sustainable. And this will have a lot to view about the location of data centers and swapping jobs and balancing loads and compensating refrigeration with heat dissipation. But of course, all of this will require a lot of work, and if we don't tackle it well, it's another possible crisis that we are creating. The second is the second critical thing is what the professor mentioned, which is the social inequality and the employee well-being. As Professor Bonini said, it's wonderful. Education is very important. Remote education is fantastic. Many have learned in the last 2 years and have accessed competencies and content at distance. And let's face it, some of us also have improved also their quality of life because of this mix of remote and in person. We all love, by the way, I also love to be in person. I really like to give a speech, not to be in front of a screen. So between the two, I prefer to be in person. Yet, we have to accept that, not all have been given this opportunity. There are areas where there is still a lot of citizens divide. Sophistication of internet use is not the same everywhere in the world. In developing economies, and more people actually don't have access rather than have access to the internet. And also in developed economy, low access, low broadband, low speed actually has an impact on certain areas of the geographies. And this reduces the opportunities for young people, for students, to really learn at the same pace, and actually starts creating a much bigger divide from the early years, which is even worse than before. So we cannot say that this remotization has been everybody wins. A lot of people have won, but some have not, and this is something that we have to accept as a criticalities. And the third criticality is the uneven geographic distribution of innovation and therefore the related economic fallout. If you think that there's an estimate that between 70 and 100%, depending on the domain clearly, of the innovation is generated in 5 countries in the world. And the 5 countries are, as you would imagine, the US, China, Taiwan, Japan, and Korea. So 5 countries concentrate between 70 and 100% of the innovation. And we all know that innovation is self-reinforcing, and it reinforces the cluster where it happens, and it reinforces the region where it happens. And so the more this is concentrated, the more also geographical divide will happen. And then we also have an issue with competition between low-wage nations and also innovation countries that have underinvested in technology, that eventually creates insufficient manufacturing capabilities in other parts of the world and creates dependencies from imports, which we are seeing now with this big supply chain crisis that is happening almost everywhere in the world. Now, if we manage to smooth out such divides and we avoid scenarios in which few innovators win and the rest is just consumers, it's just people who use the innovation, then we will give everybody everywhere, and our objective should be everybody everywhere in the planet, the same opportunities to innovate, to have fulfilling lives, and of course to also thrive personally. So I'm an enthusiast about technology. I'm an enthusiast about the digital opportunity, but we have to accept that there are some challenges, the three that I mentioned, maybe also a few more, but there are some challenges that we have to tackle. So what is the recipe? What are the suggestions that I have to tackle those three critical issues? I suggest 5 things. The first one is clearly regulations that have to strike the right balance between, on one hand, the consumer safeguards, and on the other hand, the innovation. Europe has produced a lot in the recent years. DMA, Digital Markets Act, Digital Services Act, for example, are focused on creating a reliable, safe, open, and secure market for digital products and services, but without unduly restricting neither technological progress nor competition. Or we can think about the Artificial Intelligence Act that, again, other people are more competent about than me in this day, through which, as Europeans, we try to, again, be a leader on one hand, or have the ambition to be a leader on technology development, also become a global hub for talents, but at the same time preserving a trustworthy artificial intelligence environment where citizens can really be confident that none of their rights, of their basic rights, is at risk. So first, good regulation. Second, stronger and wider cooperation via public-private partnership. Now, I am a great believer in public-private partnerships because I think this pulls together the better part of two worlds: R&D capabilities, efficient regulatory processes, entrepreneurial spirit can really be leveraged through this. And we have to recognize that PPPs are crucial because on one hand they give higher and faster opportunity to have a technology transfer. The public is not usually very fast in adopting technology, private is more, so it's an area where private can contribute quite a bit. It fosters clearly innovations and risk-taking. Again, the public is not great at risk-taking, and we shouldn't be great, I would argue. The private is actually much better, so putting together, again, you find the better balance. But then there is also something which actually the public is better than the private, which is the protection of citizens' rights, because by definition, and again, I come from the private sector is a bit less keen to preserve everybody's rights than public. So this would be a very, very good way, I think, to tackle these technology challenges. And we have examples, you know, the COVID-19 vaccines, cloud services, AI, digital health, which is something where I believe a lot and our government is investing quite a bit, are all areas where public-private partnerships are proven to be important. Third, sustaining manufacturing and supply chain networks. This is important. We need to ensure production continuity to avoid shocks to either supplies or prices, and reduce the dependency from a specific area. I think, I don't want to talk politics today, we are seeing these days what's happening with gas and with oil. Over-dependence on specific areas of the world is never a good thing, even without making political comments about the nature of the partners that you have. Inevitably unbalanced commercial relationships are not great for peace and for cooperation. It's much better to spread around. So sustaining manufacturing and supply chain networks and spreading them, I think, is going to be super important. Fourth, we need to encourage innovation through public funding of R&D when there is either a market failure or the risk assessment is difficult. Again, I have seen both sides of the story, the public, the private. Usually, private is very good at taking risk unless risk is not accessible. And if you look at many of the big developments that have occurred in the last, I would say, century, when the risk was not clear, was not easy to assess, That's the role of the state to consider if it is worth funding. I work also on space. Space, there are areas which are clearly commercial today, but there are areas which are really long-term, and no private person would just fund the whole thing. So again, this is what the state should do, or the public should do, to go where either there is a market failure or there is a difficult risk assessment. And here there are tools, there are funds, there are regulatory sandboxes, there's different ways of making this happen. And then fifth, and as always, the most important, nurturing human capital. And again, this is I'm speaking in, in the temple of nurturing human capital. We need to build people's right skill, but also to keep them up to date. And here there are, of course, everybody talks about encouraging, cradle to third age learning. This is obviously important. There's a lot of talk about STEM. Of course, we need to push the competencies in STEM, in science and technology, and we need to support from early education to university the inclusion of STEM. I would say I heard talking about STEAM, not just STEM. Now STEAM, apart from being STEAM, the A stays for arts, and I am a great believer of it. I believe the integration of arts and liberal arts and technology is also going to be very crucial, and including both components. You can be an engineer but still have some elements of arts and non-scientific learnings, including in your curricula, and vice versa. You can want to be a director of a museum, but still have technology as part of your background. And I think that both, it's not a contradiction, both directions are important. We need more STEM, but we also need more STEAM. And then we need to create, I think, also other paths, not just pure university path to job. I had a meeting now just before coming here with the organizers here, and the first question I asked is, where are your students go? What jobs do they take? How long it takes to get there? It should not be considered a consequence. It should be the reason why we educate people. And there are many paths, and here you talk about sector-based university partnership between university and private, where you blend academic and industry expertise. It could be vocational training, it could be more on-the-job training. We need to measure how much we spend at all phases in life about educating our citizens to be more equipped for the changes. And I think if we do work on these 5 things, but especially on the 5th, then we can see the beauty, the opportunities of technological development together with the sustainability, the social sustainability of it. So I stop here because I was asked to be brief. If you think that these 5 tasks are enormous and very wide, yes, they are. But I do believe that, again, through a good cooperation of what I call the magic triangle, which is academia, business, and institutions, it's actually going to be easy to find the right balance across the 5 and really have tackled the challenges for the future in a very effective way. And if I may say so, today is the proof that this is already happening. So congratulations and well done.
Thank you, Minister, for the inspiring speech. Valuable insights, and that for sure will help us even to carry out our future research. So critical issues and pathway for future research. Thank you. Now, our next keynote speaker, Professor Silvio Micali, MIT professor, recipient of Turing Award and founder of Algorand. Please.
Thank you very much. I hope the slides show up. Yes, they are. All right, so I'd like to welcome in presence everyone. Education is really important, as Minister Colau just said, and as the LUMSA says, education is love, and is love of a new generation, so congratulations on on this here in presence and for what you are doing for Italy and the world. So today I'd like to talk to you about blockchain, a little bit about myth, reality, and the opportunity actually for more equitable development. So pretty fast, what is this is not advancing, the slide. All right, at least now I advance. Okay, so at the very aspirational level, it's very clear. What do we want? We want a database, not that somebody, some authority has and tell you what is in it, but to have a database in which everybody has a copy, the same copy of the same database. It's a shared database. It's a decentralized database that everyone can read, everybody can write an entry in this ledger, and nobody can alter what has been written there or the order of what has been written. The potential is really great, so who does not like a database that cannot be hacked or altered? Who does not like transparency? Who does not like the possibility to generate trust among people that barely know each other? However, aspiration is should be always higher and higher. That's our fate as humans, but somehow technology has to sustain this aspiration. Otherwise, we are talking about dreams and not a reality. So we have been told that a wave of decentralization was upon us, sociologists and journalists, everybody agreed, and somehow this could be seen nowhere. So why? Because somehow the famous trilemma blocked the blockchain, which said any blockchain, no matter how you do technologically, either is insecure or is not scalable or is not decentralized. Really? If this happens, this is simply not acceptable. Who wants an insecure blockchain? Nobody. Who wants a blockchain that does not scale? Well, if you want to help the world, it better scale. And if you are not interested in decentralization, why the hell do you want a blockchain? So fortunately, the trilemma is false, it was empirically true for the first 2000 and change of blockchain. But the most interesting question is, how come this trilemma, false as it was so long believable to be true? So what is the challenge in a blockchain? Believe it or not, is not the inalterability of the content or the order of what is posted on the database. That actually can be achieved by 50 years ago cryptography, which in cryptographic terms is prehistory. What seems to be the difficulty is essentially a political almost problem. Who has the right to append the next block or transaction, the next page in this shared ledger? If I had to have this power, I would have more power than any absolute monarch in history, because I can decide what will become common knowledge, visible to everybody, and what transaction should never see the light of day. So to solve this problem, the original technology was a proof of work, and it looked good at the time. And what they say, it's not my job to add the next block, is not yours either. Here is what we're going to do. We create a computational game. We create a very hard to solve cryptographic riddle. The first one of us to solve it has the right to present a solution and has the right to append the next block or transaction, the next page to the ledger. Wow, that seems very good, but turns out it's very slow. You add a page every 10 minutes. Slow means non-sustainability. If you want to sustain the world, there is a lot of us. All of us want to transact, right? So if you have a new page every 10 minutes, good luck. So it is very expensive because everybody wants to win this computational game. So I buy first a supercomputer, then two, and then nowadays you can Google it, miner, and see what happens. Racks and racks and racks of supercomputers, all very expensive. And so the one of us who cannot afford a supercomputer, they're not in the game. They're never going to ask to contribute a new block to the change. So this becomes the ultimate decentralized because things get expensive, fewer and fewer people can afford them, and so we end up in a centralized blockchain. And if this is not enough, we waste a tremendous amount of energy by powering all this blockchain. This is not sustainable, not only economically, but just, is a life-threatening. So, not good. So the next approach is also very simple. You don't want to be efficient? All right. We delegate to 10, 11 people the right to append the block, and everybody of us, be content. Don't you trust them that they're going to do a good job for all of us. This, ladies and gentlemen, is centralization by design. So that you start centralized and you continue to centralize forever. People may say, so what? Who gives a damn about being there are 10 people in charge? Well, nations gives a damn. Because in an international contest, do you really want to you feel represented if there is 10 representatives who choose whether you can transact or not? Or even big corporations. Do you want to consign yourself to a few minors, to a few delegates? What if somebody hates you later on or disallow you from transacting altogether? I don't believe that is really what the new sustainability looks like. So the list can go on. So, but essentially, let me tell you the flawed logic that has governed blockchain so now, and it works like this. The whole economy is secure if the majority of a small piece of economists are honest. Is this puzzling? Yes, because it is. So in other words, here is in red the big circle, the whole economy. And you see the green spot? These are the people whose honesty depends the whole functioning of this architecture. You barely see it, so I'm going to make it a little bit magnified for you. So who are these people? These are the miners. Now, you tell me, in the global GDP, what is the percentage represented by the miners? It's minuscule. And what is 10 people in the global economy? It makes no sense whatsoever. So we took a different approach, and you say, blockchain we love, all this shared common knowledge database. That's, by the way, a new for humanity. Today with Facebook, and we know that you push a button, a message of yours gets delivered to millions of people. But when you get a message from Facebook, do you know that the same message has been received by everybody else on Earth? No. Common knowledge is a new technological reality which is extremely important and is really new. And so what do we want to do? Here is, I believe, an alternative logic that serves us better. So you have all these tokens, and so you want to make sure that the economy works if the majority of these tokens are in honest hands. In other words, if you want to bring down or decentralize the system, I must conspire with you, and you. And when we have the majority of the tokens representing the economy, then we can shoot down the very economy of which we jointly own the majority of. That perhaps is less likely to happen. So, and by the way, you want to do this fast and cheaply and without really energetic consumption, because a blockchain that is bad for the environment is a bad blockchain, period. So what we want to do is not so efficiently, but even if we can do 1 billion people can somehow agree on the next block and grow the blockchain. And what do I mean by efficient? Efficient means the electrical consumption of the whole overall system being equivalent to the electrical consumption of 10 homes. That means to be friendly to the environment, and that is a blockchain that can actually, now we start talking about where we can sustain, being sustainable or not. So besides this common knowledge, which I said is a very important gift, another gift of the blockchain are smart contracts. And so again, here for smart contracts, there is, in the traditional smart contract is the ideal and the technology. And so traditional smart contracts are typically very expensive, very slow, and very fragile. All right. And so what instead what you want to do is that you want to do them differently, very, very efficiently. And let me give you an example. One example, the economist called payment versus delivery, but it's a simultaneous exchange. What is trade? You have something that I want, and I have something that you want, and we want to exchange it. Okay, who wants to go first and give me what I want, and then I promise to give you what I want? You are not going to go for it. Well, neither will I. So what do? In the real world, we have a trusted mediator. Well, first of all, trusted mediators are costly, and they're also rare. Because if you are, say, living on a faraway continent from mine, whom exactly we know is trusted. And somehow these, call them Goldman Sachs, all these other mediators, they're not going to here to help the little people. If there is bank in case, I don't know, BNP Paribas, Citi, Goldman Sachs has some money to help the trade. Give both assets to Goldman Sachs swaps them and gives it back to you, right? And there is money for them to be made. But if I am a Sicilian farmer and you are a Thai farmer, and what we want to transact is $10, there is nothing for these mediators, global orchestration of mediators in the world to help us. We are not profitable enough to them. Who is going to help us? So how about traditional smart contracts? Well, we just say they're slow, costly, and fragile. So there is also some other techniques which don't work either. So the way to do it essentially is to have the swap as a single transaction, not a sequence of transactions, but is the same transaction. Think of it like in a bank. You remember the old-fashioned that there is something that you twist around, so I have access to what I want, if and only if you have access to my money or whatever it is. A single transaction, a few seconds, no need to write any software, pre-programmed, and a fraction of a cent, which is about right if you want to talk about sustainability. So without being chaperoned by anybody, if thanks to the blockchain, you can, without knowing the other person, know that you are going to get what you want, if and only if I'm going to get what I want, at a fraction of a cent and with ultimate security. Here is the swap. That is hard to beat, by the way. And so you can do the same thing, and you can imagine in a global economy or, somebody, you want to have correlated payment. I pay you if and only if you pay her, and if only if she pays him, and blah, 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 blah. So how do these orchestrate it? This is a deadlock, right? Somebody produces coffee on the Andes. Somebody has to bring them from the Andes to the plane. Somebody has to ship by train to a harbor. Somebody puts them, load them on a ship. The ship has to arrive to Genoa or wherever it is. And so, and then it says, let's start paying. Nobody wants to go fast. Here, the idea of a blockchain properly working is that you push a button. You don't know if everybody else pushes a button. But if they don't, your money stays with you. And everybody does. All money is distributed, again, at a fraction of a cent as a cost. And you can do all kinds of other things. And by the way, that, in my opinion, is what DeFi for me stands for democratization of finance, which means to give the most powerful, sophisticated tools that today are only available to an elite, to everybody, a bidden price in a very secure manner and in a very scalable manner. All right, here is some possible applications. The first one are here in honor of Minister Colau, transparent public administration. The public administration aspires to be a glass house, una casa di vetro. There are no secrets hidden. So how about if you have, somehow you want to follow the journey through the public administration of a document. You have a request to the public administration. In Italian, la pratica. Where is la pratica? It says, if once he arrives to me, I will process right away. Don't ask me, I haven't gotten yet. What if you can track it on the blockchain? You know at whose desk is staying right now. That is an incentive to process and give the public the service, the efficiency that it deserves. Register of deeds, il catasto in Italian. How about if you put il catasto digitally? Well, first of all, think about Ukraine. Ukraine today is suffering a loss. And by the way, any invader in history, the first thing you want to say, where is the register of deeds? Because I want to set it on fire. So then I can say it's legitimately mine, this building, this apartment, whatever, right? If instead the register of deeds is distributed and is in all servers, millions of servers all over the world, I cannot set it on fire. If it is on a digital already, the register of deeds, I cannot alter the server and change what's inside. The world is the custodian of what has happened. Much less, fewer wars ever will exist if you cannot legitimately own what you conquer. And by the way, and if you have such a thing like your apartment eventually, at your election, not imposed by any public administration, but I elected to have mine. Then you can swap for money and sell it to somebody else without the help of anybody else, because ownership is immediately visible and transparent on the blockchain. You get a lot of benefits for doing this. You know, the tech, so, or all kinds of services, you know, I sign if and only if you sign this document, right? So all these services, or I send you a message if and only get a digital receipts, essentially certified email. All these things can actually be done much less costly, much more efficiently using the blockchain. And if you're looking about the circular economy, which I know that many of you work, you know what the first thing to optimize, you know, the flow of food? Where is the food? Where is the excessive food? Where is it located? Where are the goods? Wherever the goods are, it's not only food. You must have a visibility to optimize the process and to make sure that nothing goes to waste. And that's what you really need a blockchain for. Carbon trading, or the administration who wants to give incentives to the people who clean up the environment, who don't produce waste on the environment. But you want to be paid, you must prove that actually you are not, you're not damaged to the environment. And I think that is, in my opinion, another visible application. The government is ready to give you incentives, but you must demonstrate that really what you're doing are working, that you are decreasing the pollution and everything else. And I would say all kinds of agro-tokens, which is a way to represent by a token, say, a ton of grain. And that can be immediately traded. This can give liquidity to farmers right away. And because farmers, what they don't have is liquidity is the most very high. And the more it sits there, the more it loses value. So that is, in my opinion, what I can do. And by the way, you can think about your thing. I left a placeholder, your application, put it there. In some, I believe a blockchain have a chance to benefit the world, but they are sophisticated mechanisms and do require sophisticated technology. So in university, that's what we create, among other things, are technology, so create your technology. And by the way, often we have erected to the skies architectures of great beauty and lasting power. This is the Roman bridge in southern France, which has been operational for over 2,000 years. And I believe that the public blockchain is going to be no less beautiful as an architecture bridging and cementing our cooperation, as allowing people living on different types of a bridge to join, to see and transact with each other, and is going to be as useful and lasting if we build it well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Micali, for allowing us to better understand how the blockchain works and appreciate the potential application. Thank you so much. Now I will call to the floor the President and CEO of Johnson & Johnson MedTech. Please, Silvia De Dominicis.
Good morning, and thank you so much for this kind invitation. Of course, it's difficult for me to come after two esteemed presenters, but I am hopeful that I will be able to represent a company that is trying to put in practice truly what we are discussing, the sustainability of the business. So I'm not sure whether everyone knows J&J, Johnson & Johnson. It started in 1886 in New Jersey, New Brunswick, with a dream of two generals, Johnson and Johnson, the two brothers, who had a dream to create a safer sterile surgery, because at that time it was not existing as sterile surgery. So you may imagine what was the impact on people's lives. And the company has progressed throughout internal innovation and acquisition, and also with the employment of people. At the beginning, there were 14 employees, 8 women, 4 men, to create this, big corporation as it is nowadays. But what's really peculiar for J&J is that every company nowadays is talking about CSR, corporate social responsibility, that to an extent is linked to a sustainable business model. It started in 1943, so during the Second World War, the creation by these two brothers of a document called Credo. And Credo clearly states what are the priorities that all employees and leaders should follow when taking decisions, especially in tough times. And we know, which is the tough time we are getting out of it. So in the Credo, the first responsibility is truly towards patients, towards doctors, nurses, and healthcare practitioners who are supposed to be close to our patients that ultimately are those who we serve. The second one was towards employees and also suppliers, those who make it possible for us to innovate, to create products and now services and solutions, and to deliver better healthcare. The third one, let's remember, 1943, was the community, already at the time, because it cannot be health for a company without bringing health to the communities. And you can consider global and the environment as a community as such. And this document was closing out by stating that if the leaders are able to do these things right in this order, shareholders should have a fair returns. The shareholders were the two brothers. They put them as a consequence of a big purpose that they were having. Of course, this document has evolved, and now this has led to our ESG strategy, so environment, social, and governance. Because the pandemic has put back at the center the health of our people. We have been working, relentlessly throughout more than a century to truly, target the most healthcare pressing unmet needs, so meaning advancing the standards of care. And it could sound like a general concept. In reality, it means, I already cited the sterile surgery, but also the laparoscopic approach, the minimally invasive approach, and now is evolving towards personalized medicine, treating, for example, diseases like cancer. 70% of cancer cases are inoperable. So how do we make sure that we can find a cure also for those who don't receive a treatment now? So the health of the planet and also the social health, so meaning working on diversity, equity, and inclusion, that means protecting those who are less represented, is something that we really believe, and it's in our gene. Before the ministry, Colau called out, those who are the poorest of the world, because there's no doubt that normally there is a big thing of ensuring access, but also ensuring affordability. And how do we tackle low-income countries that, of course, have a lower level of affordable? And so we created a global public health department that is truly focused on, of course, working on the most pressing needs in those areas, especially the infectious disease, and also leveraging, the connection with the mobile and so on. So we are truly taking into account not only the developed markets, but also those who are, too risk to be left behind. But coming back to what is the impact? Now you are talking general things, but concretely, what are you doing? So first of all, investing $15 billion per year in innovation, because this was already mentioned. Innovation is critical. It's critical to advanced care. It's critical to a more sustainable world. It's critical to, to tackle the emerging healthcare needs. I talk about employee and supplier and caring about the minorities. More than $5 billion of our business is done through small, diverse business supplier, even local supplier in the communities. We do have 48% representation of gender diversity in leadership position, not in general, which is normally something that we measure, and also 38% of racial ethnicity. This is something probably that is, less spread, but it is equally important. And then protecting the environment. So, of course, extremely committed to reduce CO2 emission, 34% reduction just last year, and 50% of energy consumption coming from, natural and renewable sources. But talking about access and affordability, of course, implies the use of digital technology. It was reminded before. And I must say that the greatest leap during these 2 years of pandemic has taught us really to how to empower citizens, patients, HCPs, hospitals, to be more connected, to use the digital technology. Nowadays, the first thing everyone does, should he or she have any issue, health issue, goes to the net and look for alternatives, look for treatment, look for site of care. So this is something, is a point of no return that we started, if you will, exploiting together with hospital and surgical communities. The ministry before was remembering the network, the kind of, this is something that we learned during the pandemic, how to network together. Actually, I made the opposite pathway because I come from public and then I transition into the private sector. But of course, for me, the common, good and common purpose is still my guiding star. So we started, listening to our customer, understanding that, for example, during the pandemic, patients couldn't connect to their doctor, either before the surgery or even after the surgery. So imagine someone taking a surgical intervention and couldn't access nor to the hospital, neither to the HCP. So we developed together with an hospital. Normally our formula is to develop in the private because it's faster, and then to move it into the public, who could benefit the most in terms of efficiency, in terms of effectiveness. And so we developed, for example, the Care for Today monitor. So it's an app where we involved the patient association, so all the stakeholders of the system, not only the companies and the hospital and the surgery, who wanted to get a connection before, during, and after the surgery. It was called 1.6 app because it took 1.6 seconds, talking about the pace and the fast, to reply. And by doing so, it was important to ensure a fundamental shift. We as citizens have normally considered the hospital as the site of care. This is shifting. I start treating or caring about my health at home, and I finish at home. And I go to the hospital in the acute setting only when it's really needed. This is particularly crucial because talking about affordability of healthcare system across the globe, it's important that we make sure that we exploit resources really for those who need this kind of intensity care of treatment, while taking other kind of support for those who are in a less intense care need. The outcome of it was that in 3 months we started deploying it for cancer, for obesity, for a number of patients, pancreatic cancer patients and so on. And during the pandemic they were able to stay connected, to require indications. Of course, this, in talking about talents and people, I do think that this also requires a sort of different organization within the healthcare system, because clearly you need to get a sort of case manager or someone who is really, focused on creating and ensuring the connection with the patient. But the outcome of it was that 95% of patients of all ages would recommend the use of this app to ensure, let's say, a flawless patient pathway and a shorter length of stay within the hospital. Again, this is particularly crucial in a moment where the capacity is the #1 limit in recovering the long waiting list due to the lack of diagnosing, prevention, but also treatment. A second example I want to bring is the procedure optimization and all the patient pathway optimization using the Six Sigma. So again, using science, technology, new way of approaching it under a mathematical or engineer standpoint is to revisit the whole patient pathway. Again, in order to properly exploit the resources of the hospital in the more efficient and effective way. And this has brought to increase in the hospital where we deployed this system 50% of the capacity. So 50% of beds availability for those who needed to be treated. And another example is around SPI. SPI is a method, is a German company that has been acquired by J&J, and is about standardization of the procedures. I'm sure most of you have taken a flight, right? And when you get into the airplane, you don't ask yourself, is this pilot going to drive this plane in one way or another? No, you have a process. This was not the case for the surgery. So, of course, outcomes are impacted by the ability of the surgeon. That's why we invest so much in professional education, but also the procedure, the process that is strictly followed throughout the procedure. So standardizing the surgical procedures means reduce variability, means increase clinical outcomes out of it, and also preventing complications like infection, bleeding, leaks, and so on and so forth. But there are many other technologies that we are using in order to assure personalized treatments and to use artificial intelligence also to leverage the collective intelligence at global level, because one of our idea is truly to put in correlation the knowledge, the research across the globe, not hospital by hospital. So I hope I was able to give you a little bit of sense of what is the evolution in the healthcare system, and also our commitment as J&J to dramatically change the trajectory of healthcare for humanity. Thank you.
Thank you very much for highlights the impact of digitalization in the healthcare industry. Thank you. So to conclude, I would like to share with you very briefly some figures of the conference. There are more than 200 of people attending the conference, both in presence and online. And in total, more than 150 papers will be presented in the 17 parallel sessions that will follow this opening ceremony. And I strongly believe that the conference proceedings, so these contributions, these papers, are of a great importance because they address the most relevant topics on which the scientific community is discussing now, and show us the direction of the research is taking in Europe and beyond. So having read all this contribution, surfing and read fast, the most relevant issues linked to the main topic of sustainable business model that emerged can be summarized in three main keywords. The first one is collaborations. We discussed before about public-private partnership. To address the challenge of the futures, company needs to collaborate. Collaboration is the way. So in all the different shapes it takes, the ecosystem, public-private partnership, cross-sector collaboration, open innovation, community engagement, stakeholder engagement, networking. So all our research focus on this topic. And among others, the industrial symbiosis seems to have also a fundamental role to give life, in particular to circular economy models. Second topic, energy. We know the issue of energy is critical, is crucial, and this issue have been addressed from the double perspective. One is that of companies from different industry facing the energy transition challenges, and One is that of companies working in the energy field, in the energy sector. And central topics are the decarbonization, democratization, and digitalization. Third keyword, technology. We discussed about this, where blockchain has a key role in supporting companies in developing sustainable business model, but also the role of startups, and again, the role of the ecosystem to promote its development. To conclude, allow me to thank you once again, our keynote speakers, and I also wish to thank Chiara, Alberto, Anastasia, and all LUMSA ambassadors. Without their efforts, this conference would not have been possible. So thank you. I hope you will have a fruitful and constructive conference and enjoy these 2 days with us and in Rome. Thank you.